Hello and welcome to the Hardy Brain, the show that takes athletic, introverted entrepreneurs and leaders and transforms them into ironclad brain performers. I'm your host, Dr. David Hardy. And today on our show, we've got another amazing guest. He is an exponential blueprint consultant, a president founder in the AI health and energy arenas, the co-author of 2030, a blueprint for humanity's exponential leap. And he is on a mission to save 1 billion lives with AI. Welcome to the show, Doug Hohulin. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, do 1 billion people need their lives saved?
I think so. There's 8 billion people on the planet, 8.1 billion. And the question is how many of them will die in this century? And how many of them will live healthy lives? And so not only do I want people to live longer, I want them to live healthier as well. So there's been 5 technologies out there that have saved 1 billion lives throughout history. And the question is, will AI be another one of those technologies that will save 1 billion lives?
All right. Kind of expand on this. So, what is the state? Because I know you love facts and you probably got these memorized of how poor global health is, like not just the Western world, but
Yeah, I
everywhere.
mean, there's a couple, there's life expectancy, right? And, the life expectancy here in the United States is about 7.77 years. It actually went up. It went down by a factor of 3 years, and now it's been going up back because of COVID and then getting better. Healthy life expectancy is one of the other challenges because what happened during COVID is we went from the average American had 66 years of healthy life expectancy. It dropped down by over 2 years to 63.9. And
Wow. And
we'll see
that's
what
on average. So some
that's
people
on
are struggling.
average, and
Yeah.
according to the World Health Organization, you can do like, okay, you're severely unhealthy, or you moderately or mildly unhealthy. They have a different number of different factors that you can take the test to see where you state. Now, actually, how I got onto this concept was, when are you healthy, right? And I was talking to my favorite author, Byron Reese, and we were talking about that. And it's like, okay, you're unhealthy when you have a 1% chance of dying, which for men is 59 years old in the United States. And then you're very unhealthy when you have a 10% chance of dying in the year. So we were talking about that. And so I started thinking about, okay, what does it mean to be healthy, to live your life to the fullest? And so in this book, 2030, A Blueprint for Humanity's Exponential Leap, I have 2 co-authors. One is Dr. Harvey Castro, who's an ER doctor by training, written 18 books, a lot of them around AI and how AI can help with healthcare. In fact, we wrote an earlier book, 20 Tech-Powered Healing, The Future of Medicine in the AI Age, in April. And that was self-published. And now this book was published by University of Toronto Press.
Okay.
Anyway, the key question is, how can we have a blueprint to live a healthier life, get more meaning out of our life? And then now with AI being a powerful tool, how can we leverage AI tools to make us as healthy as possible?
Right. And before we go to that, which we're all dying to dive into, is okay, well, how's AI going to be the savior for all of us? Is back to that stat because there seems to be a huge gap in people who want to perform better too or want that health span. And I know as an athlete, I could still be in that 1% of people who are former athlete, I should say sometimes. I'd still be in that 1% chance of dying at a average age instead of that 10% side. But I notice a huge difference when I'm in shape and when I'm out of shape. And it's even a finer, smaller, more precise, probably percentage or number. Um, where does that kind of come in then, too? Or are we just looking at macro scales versus maybe a good majority of the people listening in who are wanting that, oh my God, I feel great versus, oh, I have 1% chance of dying. Like
Right,
what a
right.
difference
And
there.
the thing is, like I don't think every day what's, okay, here I'm an engineer by training, what's the
Right,
statistics
yeah.
and that kind of stuff. I try to live my life to the fullest as possible and to have a meaningful life. In fact, Tom Burnett said, we need three things in life: something meaningful to do, someone to love, and something to look forward to. And so, are we doing stuff each day in those three areas? But we need health to do those things. And there's physical health, right? The physical ability to do things. There's mental health, and then there's your immune system as well. Can you recover when bad things happen, right? And you and I were talking about earlier about this study from the Lancet that said, okay, for mental health, there's 14 things that you can do to lower your risk factor of dementia
Right.
by 40 to 50%. And so there's some things, that genetics you have, or just the environment or the randomness of humanity, of the world, that, you get hit by a bus tomorrow, right? And, or you develop cancer, right? And you can do everything right and still have bad things happen to you. But on average, what can you do to live the healthiest life possible? And so the question is, like in cognitive health, and as we get older, how do we maximize our cognitive health to make sure we're doing all the right things? And actually, one of the factors is loneliness, that as a
Yeah,
risk factor.
absolutely.
And, so making sure that you're engaged with other people. Another factor is stimulating your brain. Like, are you involved in organizations that really get you thinking and encouraging you and supporting you? So people to love, right? Things to do, something meaningful to do. Those are the things that are so absolutely critical. And then we all, naturally we're going to get sick, right? And unfortunately, because of COVID, I think it was like 7 million people have died around the world because of COVID. And bad things are going to happen. But the question is how can we do as much as possible on Earth, that we can do, not stress out of the stuff we can't do, but of the things we can do. How do we maximize our health, both cognitively, physically, and then boost our immune system to help our body to recover?
Right. And that's such a key point is that, yeah, COVID kind of taught us one thing, that there were people whose immune systems were dysfunctional.
Hmm.
And we're seeing that skyrocket. Like uh, autoimmunity and autoimmune dysregulation is starting to creep in the stats like diabetes type 2 used to. That it was an older, sicker population that had it. And now we're seeing it younger and younger. And both are occurring. So there's that side of things. And quite commonly, the system's just playing name that bug. And then on top of that, there are some people that are predisposed to things. So the unlucky genetics, I guess. And then a
Yeah.
combination of those unlucky genetics and horrible lifestyle factors all mixed in together. Uh, that's a complex system. So, where is health tech at to start to actually go through some of those and make things precise and deliverable to people?
Yeah, well, getting a good medical treatment when you have a condition is absolutely critical. In fact, according to the World Health Organization, 3 million people there's going to be 62 million people that will die this year, of which 3 million people will die because of unsafe medical care. 50% of that is due to medication errors, right? Either
Yes.
taking too much medication, not enough medication, the wrong medication. Or not medication at all. So, the key thing is okay, how do we make sure that you're, what is right for you? I heard one statistic, I haven't validated this one, but they said only 20% of prescriptions that people take actually make a meaningful difference in numbers to treat. How many people do you have to take a medication to make a significant difference? But at the same time, then there's numbers to harm, right? If you're allergic to penicillin and you take penicillin and you didn't know about it, you could die from that. So, there's numbers to treat, numbers to harm. And so that's why, my background is I worked at Motorola and Nokia for 33 years. I have a background mainly in communication technology, but I worked on digital health projects, communication with blood glucose meters in the cell phone. Worked on cameras that would detect if people have fever during the COVID epidemic. So, I've worked on some various digital health projects. And I'm really a believer in personalized medicine. Like, okay, what can I do? And you can get overwhelmed with information. So how I look at it is, what are 5 things you can do to maximize your health today? And different people, my mom's 88 and she has a different 5 things she can do versus me versus someone in their 20s. But actually a big area, and I think hopefully, there's this focus on making the world healthy as possible. And especially because of COVID, how do we raise up at least back to the levels pre-COVID, and then to expand on it and be as healthy as possible? What can we do as an individual level? And a big factor of that is diet and exercise. Sugar, we talk about all the bad things, microplastics and that kind of stuff. But I have a sweet tooth, right? Sugar is my heroin. In fact, I joke with people. It's like I need a donut, like I need a shot of heroin, because I can pass on heroin because I've never taken it. But, the sweets is really what I really have to work hard at.
Right.
And
Yeah, it can be an addiction for people. And then that kind of goes into the personalized functional medicine side of things too, looking at, okay,
exactly.
what's in your system that we can decrease those cravings for a
Yeah.
person? Is that on the radar with big health companies? Because it always seems it's okay, well, we're going to let things get this far out of line and then we'll come up with something to kind of
Well,
solve the problem versus, okay, how does the system work and how can we enhance it and get the human biology working better? Uh,
right. Well, and that's where I'm hoping that sensor technology. In fact, Nokia had a $2 million X Prize, and I think it was like 2011 or so. And then the Qualcomm had an X Prize of $10 million, a tricorder X Prize. So I'm hoping some of the sensor technology will help people to identify specifically what's going on in their body. Right now the sensors don't have blood sugar levels. You For $100 a month, even if you don't have diabetes, you can get a continuous blood sugar monitor. And so, what happens when we can really detect that? Another one is blood pressure. I think that blood pressure is a silent killer right now. Of the 62 million people that will die, 10 areas of people dying. The number one is heart disease, and that's about 10 million people. So if you can improve blood sugar, blood pressure, also blood sugar, because that's cardiovascular. The reason we have clots in many cases is because we're taking way too much sugar in our system.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
so if you want to save a life, in fact, in the book I wrote, is okay if of the 39 million people that are supposed to die, how could AI, how many people could be saved with AI technology and sensor technology by 2030? And working, with a plan is that we believe that there could be about 4 million people that life could be saved. Looking at different areas, like either in cardiovascular, like if you can understand blood sugar, blood pressure, I think that's a factor. Some of the new drugs out there, I'm really excited about some of the GLP-1 drugs that help take away the cravings, because, if you're thin, it's likely, and you're thin and you're over 30, is you probably have a natural disposition to not want that second helping, not want that third helping. But 300, 20, 5,000, 10,000 years ago, when you were in the village and there was a mammoth and you didn't take that third helping of mammoth, you'd starve to death the week later or 2 weeks later because you didn't eat enough. Now we have unlimited food with all the sugar we want and excesses as well. And it's hard to pass on that. We're naturally designed to want to eat and eat until we can't, none is available.
So on
And
that
so,
sensor perspective, because this just fascinates me when you mentioned, okay, yeah, we've got this predisposition to want to eat and satiate ourselves. And
Mhm.
yeah, we talked about it in a previous conversation that we had was on macronutrients um, versus micronutrients, and that how if you just have a diet of macronutrients, your protein, fats, carbohydrates, without nutrients, you're going to crave more food. That it's kind of this nutrient part that's so important as well. Where are we at with some of these sensors, though, kind of technology wise? That could we possibly one day have a watch or sensor on our wrist that gives us blood work without having to draw it to some extent? I know
Yeah, I
right
mean that's
now in
the,
healthcare that there's a lot of legacy equipment out there. I look at EKG, that a hospital has to run this expensive EKG, but to be honest, that technology is now available in the palm of our hands, like for cheap. But we're not seeing that transition because we've got to keep healthcare very expensive in this country, apparently. So, where's it at? Where's the tipping point for a transition?
well, I live in Kansas City. I'm involved in a number of digital health organizations that have clinicians, the medical doctors, innovation companies on this area. So a couple things. One is there's a billion people that now have a smartwatch, so that they can start following their health, with different areas and vital signs. So,
Isn't that
but like
amazing?
I
I
said,
love it.
the two things that I think that will really move the needle is blood sugar, because that helps to regulate your diet. And then also your for heart disease is your blood pressure. So I'm looking forward to that. Now, when you talk to a clinician, they talk about dirty data, right? So when you go to, when you get, like let's say I get this information about either blood sugar or blood pressure. Well, the doctor wants to validate that information, right? It's like, okay, well, you have this information, but I need to, clinically validate that, yes, you have this issue. So I do believe that AI is going to help with this, because, it's going to be like, okay, this is the tool that you use to take the measurement, and it's a gold standard measurement, right? That, you've been tracking this. And then, that information can be fed up into an AI system that can look at it along with the clinician. So the clinician can take a look and say, okay, yeah, what's going on? It's like, okay, when you're eating, watermelon, your blood sugar spiking, or when you're eating ice cream, so, and then could you do something different? Like in fact, I found, I love ice cream, but I found that Greek yogurt, plain Greek yogurt with peaches and grapes, is just as satisfying, right? And half the calories and no added sugar. So the question is can I substitute something that is bad for me with something that's good for me? And
Exactly. I
that's
love
what I
that
look for, is
perspective.
keep looking
Yes.
for what can you do to, don't cut off everything, because if you cut off everything, you're not going to, you're going to go back to the bad. But if you can find something that's good enough that you can substitute, I think that's absolutely critical.
Amazing. Now, too, AI has the possibility then to really boost what a clinician can do. More information, kind of more areas. Now, on the flip side here, implementation. Uh, we see most of this being discussed in big healthcare systems, and those are difficult to make a change to. Where are we at though? Like maybe with the smaller entrepreneur sides in healthcare and bringing them up with AI so that they can do more in their practices, whether it's a manual therapist or maybe somebody who does more talk therapy, um, kind of this combination, because the lines of health are getting blurred as we get more holistic and looking at how systems are integrated. But the structure of the system is just so regimented into specialties, into silos that, and into legacy systems that are um, the ones that hold the power. Where do you see the disruption or the integration into more healthpreneur fields? Or is that even on the radar with larger companies when it comes to the macro numbers of, say, like 1 billion people?
Yeah, well, one of the challenges is like right now is the doctors spend twice as much time on keyboard time than patient time.
Yeah,
They're
ridiculous.
feeding the electronic medical record. And now the other number to think about is 50% of people don't follow their treatment plan. So even a clinician can come in and say, hey, this is the recommended best practices for your treatment plan, but 50% people don't follow it. And according to the CDC, 125,000 people a year die because they don't follow their treatment plans. So 3 million people in the United States die a year, of which 125,000 because they don't follow their treatment plan. So the question is how can we get how can we get the patients to follow their treatment plan? And I do think that AI could give you nudges. In fact, there was this program at Children's Mercy here in Kansas City that would monitor when a teenager what their blood sugar was. And then it would be triggered to their clinician, their nurse, and the nurse would give them a text to say, okay, we see your blood sugar is high. Let's come up with a plan to lower your blood sugar. So these nudges. In fact, Children's Mercy, I think they got like a $10 million grant to work on that project. So there's different experiments going on. Actually, there's this one list of companies. I think it's 2,000 companies, AI companies in digital health, trying to figure out best practices to improve healthcare. I mean, right now the biggest cost in our country is like $4.7 trillion is spent on healthcare in the United States, and if things don't change, it's going to go up to I believe around $7 trillion by 2031. So we're going to go bankrupt if we don't figure out a different way. And just like the cell phone industry, like in fact, in 1802 there was 1 billion humans on the planet. In 2002 there was 1 billion cell phones on the planet. In 2011 there was 1 billion smartphones on the planet. And in 2002 when we had 1 billion cell phones on the planet, let's say they cost about $400 each. A smartphone at that time would have been, cost $1 million because it was a supercomputer. It requires the power of the fastest supercomputers. But we lowered the price of that technology. So I do think technology can help lower the price of these sensors to help the clinician and the patient have a conversation to say, okay, you're having this problem. Let's have a conversation of how best to solve that problem. And on a daily basis, what 5 things can you do to have to be healthier and follow your treatment plan? And if the treatment plan is not working, okay, why isn't it working, right? Is it the medication's not working? Is it a personalized issue? Is it side effects? What are some of the reasons that? So, if we use these tools right, it can enhance the patient-doctor relationship. If used wrong, what's going to happen is just like medical Googling. Right now, 20 to 40% of people, do medical Googling and they may not even go into the clinician, right? They may say, hey, I can self-treat. So they're self-diagnosed, self-treat. And with these AI tools, you can even do a much better, it gives the appearance that you're getting more valuable information to do self-diagnosis and self-treating. But with not a clinician in the loop, you can do more harm than good. So it's going to be absolutely critical that we figure out a way to keep the clinician in the loop.
Absolutely. And you say clinician, and usually most people minds run to their regular MD doctors. And I've always seen this as an opportunity for other fields, though, if allowed into the structure. And that is
Absolutely.
a lot
Yeah.
of like chiropractors or other manual therapists, they have more touch points. So more human interaction. And I see that as an opportunity to keep people on board, both that technology aspect, which some people might be scared of, to that human aspect of things, versus the trend of going more digital health, which kind of removes to some extent that interaction as well. There's a place for it. But yeah, I think a hybrid approach is one that could really impact this area as well, and also bring up the standards of other professions and areas. And I
Absolutely. Well, in
I see a
fact,
massive opportunity there for it. And
absolutely. In fact, I was looking at some research on the placebo effect. and it's around 20-30%, depending on your illness, that if you believe that this procedure helps. But it also said if your doctor-patient relationship or your clinician, if you have a healthy, positive relationship with your clinician, you will do better. And the sad thing is because of some of the concerns about thinking that if you touch someone, you're doing something wrong, right? And
Oh,
that
I'm going to throw that out there on that point. This one really irks me, and that is there's a nocebo effect out there.
yeah,
And that's causing more lives. Is if it's a stale environment, let's call it poor customer service, or
exactly.
too much time in front of the laptop filling out information that way and ignoring the person there, you've got a detrimental effect to somebody. And I see that way more powerful in what's going wrong in the system is, yeah, the way it's structured is making people sick because it's impersonal.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the clinician that treats the whole patient and makes sure that they feel listened to and heard, and say, hey, we have this issue, and we think this is the best treatment plan. But if it's not working, let us know, and we'll work through a different one, right? Unfortunately, like Dr. Atul Gawande, he says there's 13,000 ways the body can fail, and
Yeah.
and the question is, some of them right now we have 9,000 illnesses that we don't know how to treat. This is the challenge that we have.
Or it hasn't reached that time where it's researched more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hopefully that's another area of AI that those research studies are able to be sped up and also made more affordable. Is that arena you're seeing being built as well? That
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the Nobel Prize for chemistry was in the protein folding, and and now we have drug discovery, and so it's going to be amazing how many new treatment plans are there out there to help with people, especially the 9,000 diseases that don't have current treatment plan for. And so I'm just really excited that we now have tools. So just like at the turn of the 1900s, where the treatment plan was bloodletting and leaching, and exploratory surgery, we go from that to, now having standard of care. And so how best to have, this personalized medicine so that each individual can get as healthy as possible. I'm really excited for. But again, it's a partnership that you need to have good health care, but you also need to have the patient. And even if you're not a patient, let's say you're relatively healthy right now, what can you do today to keep you being healthy for the next 10 years of your life?
I love it. Now you're in the policy side of things too, and the whole book title gets me curious on this one. A lot of people have put down that date, 2030, as kind of a goal to get things done. And I've been around, I've listened to politicians, and usually when they put down a number, it means, oh, maybe 50 to 100 years past that, maybe something will be done. Um, so, how does this work with policy? What's your prediction on timeline of things being implemented and the successes or struggles we're going to see in this timeline you put down for, oh geez, a short decade and a half here to have this happen?
Right. And like, I've worked on, wrote in my co-author, one is Dr. Harvey Castro, the other one Alan Smith, and we looked at like 16 different technologies. And for me, I talked about what's the future of communication in the next 5 years, what's in transportation, like automated vehicle technology, the future of robotics and jobs and AI. And then healthcare is the four areas I wrote about specifically.
Yes, yeah.
So, and like some people are saying, hey, we're going to have AGI where the robots are going to and the computers are going to be so much smarter than us, and it's going to solve all our problems. And I think that's way too aggressive. But I am looking forward to solving. How do we solve humanity's problems? And energy is the other one I wrote about, energy and climate. And so what can we do in, this is a blueprint, right? It's like, okay, just like if you're building a building, you create a blueprint and say, here's the design I want to be in, and then how do you execute on that design? And so that's what this book is trying to do. Is it's saying, okay, what's our call to action in each of these areas as a society, as an individual, and how do you execute on it? And so like for instance, like right now, the cost of energy keeps going up. And so, can AI help reduce the cost of energy? Right now, our cost of healthcare is going up. How can AI help reduce that cost? How do we have lower our greenhouse gas emissions? Just looking at these different strategies. Again, how do we save a billion? What I'm talking about is saving at least 1 million lives with AI. Is when we can have, where I would say AGI has started to come, right? If we can save, and I'm thinking, maybe we can get to be like, if there's 62 million people that are supposed to die, how do we save where we only have 50 million people dying? If there's 1 billion people that are unhealthy, that are disabled, how do we lower that by 50%? What deaths are avoidable? What disabilities are avoidable? And what are some of the techniques that we can use to reduce that? So, if we have a blueprint, then we can execute to that blueprint. And so that's that's why I started this company, Exponential Blueprint Consulting, to say, what is our blueprints to execute on this, to make us healthier, to, save lives, to have more abundant energy. I worked when I was with Nokia. I worked in smart grid technology as well. So, looking at from a system, and in fact, I'm a system engineer by background. And so, how do we create a system approach to solve humanity's problems? And that's what I'm most interested in.
Fascinating. Do you have a prediction for the next 5 years? What can we expect?
Well, I do think that we should be able to at least save 4 million lives per year in the next 5 years. So I'm looking forward to that. I do think that 75% of new vehicles sold will be at a level 3. So 50% of the time you can be reading a book, and legally you can be reading a book. So there's going to be times where you need to keep the human in the loop, the human driver. But there's other times where you can say, okay, I'm going to let the AI do the work for me. I think AI from a work perspective and a robotics perspective, they'll do more of the dirty, dangerous, difficult, and dull jobs. And hopefully then that transitions humans to do the more creative, more interesting jobs. The key thing is, and this is, it's like, okay, tend to be an optimist, but then the question is, what could go wrong? And so the question is, for work, is like, how do we keep meaning, and enjoyment in life when the AI can do a lot of the work, and do we just replace, so okay, there's 10% of people who are loving their job, but then 50% of people lose their job because the AI did the work for them. So this is going to be our challenges. What could go wrong? It's like in technology, there's been 5 things that have saved 1 billion lives. One of them being toilet sanitation.
Yes.
Though with sanitation comes having to design that and keeping it from not bad things happening, because occasionally if the sanitation goes wrong, you get cholera and people die. With AI, like one of the challenges is right now there's 2 million UAVs, drones flying around Ukraine, causing, killing people, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so,
The basics of longevity for men is don't die.
yeah, yeah. So
but
there's this
but that's a
balance.
whole other topic here. And you've
Yeah.
got so many valuable topics and a ton of information that we're not going to be able to get to in this short podcast. We'll have to have you back as well, because this fascinates me. And
Yeah, yeah, and happy
you're
to do
in
that.
the
And I'm on
loop.
LinkedIn, and so I write articles, and then I reference the book. So if you want even to dig down even deeper, go to 2030. It's on .org, and it's kind of go through the different areas of this technology. But again, the focus, at least my focus, why I wrote on a lot of different topics, is how do we save 1 billion lives this century? And I
Right.
believe these AI tools give us a chance to do that. And so I'm really excited that you will leave a healthier life, more productive life. So it's just excited to see that happen.
Absolutely. And once again, those two areas to find you was LinkedIn. Where do they find you there? And
Yeah,
the
LinkedIn.
book,
I'm the only Doug Hohulin in LinkedIn, and and then the book is 2030.org, 2030book.org.
2030.org. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
How did you get that?
Unfortunately, that's Alan Smithson. He's the one who actually thought up the idea of this book, and he asked Harvey and myself, Dr. Castro, and myself to write. And originally it was going to be a different topic, and then Alan's wife came up with a blueprint for humanity's exponential leap, and I really liked that. And because it's a blueprint, we need blueprints, we need a plan that outlines, where do we want to go? Because without a plan of where we want to go, we won't get there. And it's
Exactly.
for humanity, right? So it's not. In fact, I started off with this is how AI can save a billion lives. No, it's humanity's quest to save a billion lives using the tools of AI. So
Oh,
I want
yeah.
humanity to be the focus, and then there's this exponential leap. Actually, a
Right.
story about cellular is one of the biggest consulting mistakes that have been ever made was McKinsey told AT&T that in the early 1980s that there would only be like 900,000 cell phones by 2020 or by 2000. In 20 years there would only be 900,000 cell phones. And so AT&T, when they, if you know the history, they broke up the long distance versus the local companies. So AT&T gave the cellular business over to the local companies because they said, well, it's only 900,000. It's not a lot of business.
Jeez, that's
McKinsey was
almost a
off.
blockbuster mistake.
Yeah, they were
Now,
off by two
now I don't
orders of
want you to give
magnitude.
away every nugget from your book and from your blogs here.
Yeah,
So, for everyone listening in, definitely check out Doug and
yeah.
2030.org and stay tuned in the next episode of The Hardy Brain, the show that takes athletic, introverted entrepreneurs and leaders and transforms them into ironclad brain performers. Take care.
Thank you so much.